Hey everyone, Critical Hits here. I got another The Division video for you guys. But before we get into a follow-up on my last video on the skills for The Division, I do have an announcement to make. And that announcement is Ubisoft has made an announcement that they have an announcement to make on December 17th. So in other words, that is an announcement of an announcement of an announcement. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why they felt the need to announce that they were going to announce something a few days later myself. But in any case, there's a lot of speculation on what exactly this announcement is going to be about. Most everyone seems to be under the assumption that they're going to release details regarding the beta, especially perhaps the day in which the beta will be available. This makes a lot of sense given the timing, since we know the game is going to be coming out on March 8th, and it doesn't make any sense for them to release the beta any later than January, since any time later than that wouldn't leave them a whole lot of time to actually make any meaningful changes to the game. The whole point of a beta, after all, is basically a stress test to see what works and what doesn't. And it kind of boggles the mind that we have a release date for the game, but not any announcement on when the beta will be available yet. Now, unfortunately, I will not be able to upload a video on that day. However, if they say anything of significance, I will be sure to upload a video the following day discussing whatever details are revealed. But moving on, I want to get into some more detail regarding the skills that may be available to you in the Division, and I want to also discuss some of the mechanics regarding how the skills work. So as I mentioned before, there will be mods associated with every skill. It appears that every skill will have at least 3, maybe 4 mods associated with it. And as we have seen in the case of the turret, there is potential that these mods may significantly change the way these abilities actually work. Also, you'll be able to equip 2 skills at a time, and the skills will basically operate on a cooldown. I don't have any information on how long these cooldowns last. Based on what we've seen in the trailers, it seems like the cooldowns last long enough that chances are you're only going to use one of each ability once per encounter. But I don't know. If you have any information on that, let me know and I will make a notation to this video. In any case, another detail about skills that I think is worth mentioning is that skills will be swappable. You can swap any skill in and out that you have learned at any time. This includes even in the middle of combat. Now, it's not necessarily advisable that you swap skills while in combat. It seems like in order to do this, you'll have to bring up a menu screen, and it's probably not practical to swap these skills in and out in the middle of combat. This is at least what Ubisoft is implying. But if by any chance you have quick fingers, you can actually conceivably do that. Now, I assume the cooldown will still be applicable, but you can change skills on the fly if you absolutely have to. And there are no class restrictions regarding your skills either. You can choose any combination of skills that you want, and you can learn them all for one character. Now, there will be roles that you can play. You have a support-oriented character that can heal allies and detect the location of enemies, or a tank who's good at soaking up damage and harassing enemies, immobilizing them. Or you can have a DPS with high-powered skills like, for example, the Seeker Mine that just bombs your enemies into oblivion. All those options are available, and you and your teammates can swap those up at any time at your convenience. Now, before we get into specific skills that I have found on the Division Wiki, I just want to note that some of these skills and the information regarding them goes way back. I mean, they date way back to the 2013 E3 demo. So we can't even be sure if these skills as is still even exist in the game. I mean, that was true to a lesser extent for the videos that I covered in my last video as well. However, in that case, we've actually seen these skills in action. Most of them were shown in the 2015 E3 demo, although not all of them. And we have more information on how those skills work. So I just want to add that disclaimer and, have you guys keep that in mind. So the first skill we're going to cover here is Optical Cloak. Now, we have no information on the skill whatsoever, but I think it's safe to say that we know what this is going to do. The real question is going to be how effective is Optical Cloak and how long will it remain in effect when you activate it. My guess is that we can expect this skill to vary in effectiveness depending on how fast you're moving or what you're doing while the ability is active. So if you're moving quickly or you're getting hit, chances are the optical effect will diminish, if not undo itself entirely. The next skill is Distraction Device. The distraction device can be thrown to a certain location, causing enemies to investigate. The fact that a skill like this, in addition to optical cloak, exists in the game seems to suggest to me that perhaps these fears that there won't be any stealth in the Division is a little bit overblown. I'm also curious because normally this is not something that I would find to be a terribly interesting skill in a game. However, it's important to note that this skill, like any other skill, will likely have 3 or 4 mods associated with it. So what will these mods do exactly? Is there a mod that will perhaps explode when the enemies get too close to it? Who knows? But I'd definitely like to see that. The next skill we're going to cover is Riot Shield. The Riot Shield skill gives players the ability to carry a Riot Shield as a mobile defense. This shield can only take a certain amount of damage before destroyed and becomes unusable. Players can still shoot with a sidearm while using this skill, but will not be able to use two-handed guns. While using this skill, players move slower and are less agile. Now, this skill was mentioned just over a month ago in one of the Division's official podcasts, so this skill will likely appear in the final game in some form. Now, I find this to be one of the more interesting skills that we've heard about because it has so many trade-offs. On the one hand, you can take more damage, or rather this thing actually takes damage for you. However, you also move slower and you can only use certain weapons in conjunction with this skill. This skill, more than any other, seems to emphasize the importance of roles in a team for the Division. Using this skill, you will presumably be doing far less damage since you'll be limited to a sidearm. But on the other hand, it's strongly implied that this skill will allow you to essentially hold aggro, as enemies will essentially be focusing fire on you at the exclusion of your allies, allowing them to position themselves better and deal more damage than they otherwise would be able to. So I'm actually looking forward to this skill more than any other because this really emphasizes the importance of teamwork. And I think given that the fact that the Division is a real-time shooter rather than a traditional MMO, the whole Holy Trinity mechanic, which I think really bogged down more traditional MMOs, can work really well here. I'm curious as to what kind of mods they'll have associated with this skill, however. I mean, other than one that might allow it to absorb more damage or something. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. The last skill we'll cover is Sticky Bomb, which does the obvious. It allows you to stick a bomb to any surface, and apparently you can actually remote detonate it. And that's all the skills I got for you guys. There are other skills mentioned in the Division Wiki, which I will link to in the description. However, there isn't really a whole lot of information on them. Some of them is just groundless speculation based on what their names are. You're free to go ahead and check it out, but I will not be covering it since we have no reason to believe that any of that information is actually true. If you haven't seen my first video on this, please do so now, and also feel free to subscribe. If you have any questions regarding the game, particularly related to the skills, let me know in the comments section below. Also tell me what kind of skills or mods you would like to see in a Division. There's a good chance after all that there's still more skills out there that we have not even heard of. Thanks for watching and keep playing.